Hey everybody, I'm JJ Johnson. Welcome to the American Prepping Academy. So, since America is basically on fire, I thought maybe this would be a good time to talk about some fire safety. So, kind of a 101 kind of stuff. But seriously though, a lot of these groups, have been making threats and saying that they're going to come out into the suburban neighborhoods and burn those neighborhoods down and those kinds of things. So I really do believe that this is probably a fairly timely subject. Some of this is pretty basic, and some of it is a little bit more advanced stuff that I do. I don't know. It just makes sense to me, but I hadn't really heard it taught anywhere before, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But anyway, with that, let's go ahead and get into it. So we're going to talk about the 7 most common causes of house fires. We're going to talk about the like a nightly fire or security check. It's a good idea to do these. Smoke detector, different kinds of detectors, smoke detector and carbon monoxide detectors. Talk about fire escape plan and assigned duties for members of the house. Doing drills. Talk about fire extinguisher types and placement. And then we'll talk about fire extinguisher use and escape ladders and some additional gear. Okay? So, with this, the 7 most common causes of house fires, there are about 354,400 per year. So, it happens pretty frequently. Cooking fires is on the top of that list right there, 42% of instances. Obviously, you never want to leave the kitchen while you're cooking, and you should always double check that the stove is off before you start eating. Make sure you don't leave that thing running. Christmas tree fires is next. Nearly 1,000 deaths per year from Christmas tree fires using those natural trees. You want to avoid using natural trees in combination with incandescent lights. If you get those LED lights, those are a lot better, or get an artificial tree, whatever you want to do there. Smoking. Smoking was the nearly 1,000 deaths per year, not the Christmas tree fires. I apologize about that mistake. And smoking, so make sure you just smoke outside the house if you do smoke. That's just a good all-around safety rule, I think. Then we got candles. Approximately 18,000 house fires per year due to candles. You obviously never want to leave these unattended. You also want to trim the wicks down so that your flame doesn't get too high. And if you can, get some of those LED fake candles. Those are probably a little bit safer. Okay, the next one was heating equipment. About 490 deaths per year. Space heaters make up 86% of fires in that category. And the thing with heaters and heating equipment, what you want to do is keep anything flammable, at least 3 feet away. What I like to do is use the 10-second rule. And if I'm going to hang something up in front of a heater to dry it out or something like that, this is an old thing we learned at the survival school. Put say you're drying out some socks or something, put your hand out in front of your sock and hold it there for 10 seconds. If you can comfortably hold it there for 10 seconds, then it's probably far enough away. If you can't, then you need to move it back. So, excuse me. I was putting up some fiberglass today and kind of breathing that crap in. It's not very good. All right, so the next thing here is dryers. Make sure your dryer exhaust is cleaned out yearly. Those cause about 2,900 fires per year. And then children playing with fire, approximately 14,000 fires per year. So keep those matches, lighters, and candles out of the reach of children and teach them about basic fire safety. That's just a great idea, I think. Okay, so nightly fire and security checks. This is something that I do. I've done it for a long time, and I think it's just a good idea all the way around. What I do is I try to make this part of my nightly routine to walk around the inside of the house and check all the doors, make sure they're locked and any alarms are set. When I'm doing this, I'm also checking the stove and the electric heater. Like sometimes in the winter, we'll use an electric heater down in the basement. Check the dryer, the furnace room, make sure everything's off and or functioning properly. And, it's a good idea to not actually run your dryer or your dishwasher, especially if you're using the heating cycle while you're asleep. just in case there's a malfunction on those appliances or anything like that. Then if you're not using them, then you're less likely to be surprised in the middle of the night by a fire. Okay, so the next thing is also take a quick walk around the outside of your house as well. This is going to help to deter anyone who may be watching the home. A lot of professional criminals and people who do, smash and grabs and different things like that, they do watch to see what your pattern is. They call it getting your pattern of life. And if they see that you go out and you're looking around and seeing what's going on and all that kind of stuff, then they may just say, let's just go somewhere else. This guy's security posture is a little higher than what we're wanting. So that'll also give you a chance to make sure that there's not any strange smells coming from different parts of the house or from a neighbor's house, because sometimes fires spread from house to house, especially if you live in a neighborhood. So, just a good all-around idea. And I think that the biggest benefit to doing this is that it's good situational awareness, and it helps you to develop that sheepdog mindset. It helps you to kind of develop that idea of, hey, this is my territory. I'm watching after it. I'm not just living inside these walls, but I'm taking care of it. You know what I mean? So something to think about. Okay, so the next thing here is talking about smoke detectors. We're talking about smoke and carbon monoxide. Be sure to install dual purpose ones, and there's a link to some on Amazon there. You need to at least have one inside each bedroom, one outside of each bedroom in a shared hallway. So like if you've got 2 or 3 bedrooms at the end of a hallway, then you want to have one right in the middle of that hallway there outside the bedroom as well. You also want to have one on each level of the home, and then one in the kitchen, and you want to make sure it's about 10 feet or so from the stove, and that's going to help you reduce some of those false alarms from cooking and stuff like that. If possible, you want to interconnect those fire alarms so that if one goes off, they all go off. Now, in older homes, the National Building Code doesn't require that if they weren't built that way. Newer homes are supposed to be interconnected. So, it depends on the year of your home and all that kind of stuff. But it is, especially if you have an attic space where you can do it fairly easily and interconnect those, it is a pretty good idea to do that. Now, if you're hearing impaired, then you want to go ahead and consider the alarms with strobe lights on them and or a bed shaker. It actually rumbles the bed to wake you up at night. All right, so fire escape plan and assigned duties. This is important. I think this is a really important one that people probably hear about, and they might even talk about it a little bit, but they probably don't do it much. And the thing is that during a chaotic situation, that's not the right time to decide who should do what if your home is on fire. Many times you've only got a couple of minutes to get out of your house. And with the chaos and trying to figure out who's doing what and all that kind of stuff, that couple of minutes can get burned up quick. So you really want to sit down and war game all this stuff out about what needs to happen if you wake up unexpectedly and your house is on fire. You need to divide the duties between the parents and the teens that are old enough. Okay. Make sure that each person knows at least 2 ways to escape each room of the home, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the additional gear or the escape ladders. You should also sleep with your bedroom doors closed. Now, I know that seems counterintuitive to a lot of people, but that actually slows the spread of a fire. It does kind of reduce your situational awareness on the inside of your home, but if you've done some of the things we've talked about in previous lessons on home security, making sure that your doors and windows are alarmed and those kind of things, then you really don't have to worry about it, and it is safer to sleep with your doors closed. Now, before you exit your bedroom, you do want to make sure you feel the door, make sure it's not hot. You also want to stay low when you're moving and avoid smoke, or to at least, have less smoke inhalation. And you want to make sure that each person yells their name out yells their name plus out when they exit the home. So like for me, I would say, JJ is out as I come out of the house. Really loud. Yell it as loud as you can. The reason you want to do that, especially with teens and you got different duties and stuff like that, you want to try to be able to keep track of who's out of the house and who's in the house. And believe it or not, house fires are quite loud, so they really need to learn to yell that very loud. All right, so the next thing is you want to practice your fire escape plan at least once per year. And I'd say my suggestion is do that when school starts. Sometime around the beginning of the school year every year. September is also National Preparedness Month, and so that's just a great time to do that. So, it really depends on the makeup of your family on who is going to do what. If you've got a couple of small children, then maybe one parent is responsible for one child, the other parent is responsible for the other. Maybe you're going to have one person grab the emergency binder that's got all the important papers in it, and another person is going to grab a laptop, depending if you don't have kids or something. I mean, it really depends on what is important and what is valuable to you and what you would need to get out of the house. Cell phone might be one of the things that you'd want to get so that you can call 911 as you're leaving or as soon as you get outside or whatever the case may be. Maybe one of the parents, if the fire is small enough, calls 911 and the other parent tries to fight the fire. It just depends on the situation, but this is something that you guys are going to have to war game out based on your situation and what your family makeup is. Okay, so with fire drills, like we said, at least once per year around the beginning of the school year, conduct an unexpected fire drill. Use these drills as you do them. Use them as an opportunity to discuss what went wrong and how to fix it. Then walk through it again where everyone is ready. Like I said, the first one you want to do it kind of unexpected, right? To kind of catch people off guard a little bit and see how they handle it. And that's after you've made your plan or whatever, maybe like a week after you've made your plan or something along those lines. Give them some time to let it sink in and then kind of do an unexpected one. And then, after you've done the hot wash, you've talked about what went wrong on the unexpected one, then you go back through it again, and then hopefully you see some improvement and, a little bit more efficiency when it's happening. Now, remember, multiple iterations is going to help to develop better memory in the event that there, is actually an emergency, what responsibilities they have in that emergency. I like this saying here. It says, we don't rise to the level of our expectations. We fall to our level of training. And I guess the guy's name is Archelaus or something like that. I don't know, old Greek name. What a great saying, though. We don't rise to the level of our expectations. We fall to the level of our training. So, how serious you take this stuff is, and how much you train to it, is how well you will do in an actual fire. And remember, we're talking about 354,000 house fires per year. So this is something that is it's a higher probability, and a lower national impact, but it's a huge impact to you. So you really want to make sure that you handle these things well. Okay, so fire extinguisher types and placements. So I tend to go a little bit overboard on this, kind of go big or go home kind of thing. I recommend having a 10-pound Amerex ABC fire extinguisher in the following locations. One in the Amerex are made here in America. One in the master bedroom, one in the hall closet, one in each living area, especially those with any kind of a heater, one near the furnace, not right next to it, but kind of on your way to it, one in the kitchen, one in the garage, and then one in each vehicle. Now that's a lot of money. When you think about that, depending on the number of and if you have older teens, I'll throw this in there, who are responsible enough to also have a fire extinguisher in the room. I wouldn't put a fire extinguisher in kids' bedroom because they'll probably end up setting it off, playing with it. But for older teens, you could throw one in their bedroom as well. Okay, so the 10-pounders, they cost about $75. They have a 6-year warranty. They are rechargeable. They spray about 9 to 15 feet, and they'll discharge in 10 seconds. And there's an Amazon link for the ones that I like. 10 seconds is not a very long time. They discharge quickly. So that's why you want to have multiple fire extinguishers spread throughout the house. Now, the 10-pound ones are pretty heavy. It's 10 pounds of material inside of it, but plus the can, you're probably talking 25 pounds or so, 25 pounds or so. They're pretty heavy. So if they're too heavy for you to handle, or you have smaller, folks in your home or, something like that, then you might want to go with the 5-pound and have more of them. But what I want to do is I want to be able to, if I wake up and I smell smoke, I want to be able to grab one immediately in my bedroom, especially if I need to fight my way to my kids' rooms. So I also keep an axe in my bedroom right behind my door, because what happens when a house starts to get on fire, things swell. As stuff gets hot, it swells, it gets bigger in most cases, and then so door jambs and stuff like that get stuck, and you can't get things open. And it can be quite powerful. You think, oh, I can just kick it open or whatever. Well, really, it can be a lot. That's why firemen carry axes. So you might need to go through the drywall. You may need to do whatever you need to do. And so I want to have that fire extinguisher and that axe right there in my bedroom. If I open the door and flames are right there and I have to fight the way out, then I want to have another one right there in the hallway, in the hall closet, that I can get to again if I need to. And then basically, I want to kind of map out my route to the exit. You know what I'm saying? The primary exit, if you will, so that I can have at least 2 or maybe even 3, depending on the design of your house, fire extinguishers right there. So that's just kind of how I go about thinking about it, because I think if I was surprised and my house was on fire, what am I going to need to do? Like, what am I going to need? And I think those are some of the big things that you're going to want to have. The 10-pound ones are pretty large, so you could probably go with a 5-pound in your vehicles. If you've got the space, though, go ahead and go with the 10, because vehicle fires actually do spread quickly. And I have tried putting a vehicle fire out with a 5-pounder before, and I was a little late to the scene, and it was already going pretty good, and the 5-pounder wouldn't take care of it. It wouldn't get it out. So, think about that. I mean, it's just, if you're in the vehicle, though, this was me driving up on a scene. The car had already been burning, and I tried, but it didn't get it. But if you were in the vehicle and you saw the smoke and you were there from the beginning, I think a 5-pounder would probably be okay. All right, so how do we use the fire extinguisher? This is pretty basic fire 101 kind of stuff, but it's important. You pull the pin, you aim at the base of the fire, and then you squeeze the handle and sweep it from side to side. So the PASS acronym is what they use to teach this, and this is something pretty simple that you could teach to your kids as far as how to use a fire extinguisher as well. All right, so let's talk about escape ladders. We talked earlier and we said that you want to be able to have 2 escapes from each room of the house. Most homes are only going to have 1 door to a bedroom, and that's going to go out to the main door or whatever. The second one is going to be the window. So it all depends on your house, So the second level of my home here is only about a half a story up. So it's not that big of a jump. We're only talking about 6 feet or so, maybe 7 feet, to get down to the ground level. But most 2-story homes are more like 9 or 10 or 12 feet, something along those lines, a little bit more. And so you're probably going to want to have an escape ladder. These are a great idea to keep in each closet in the room so that you can grab and use if need be. Let me just say a couple things here about this. It's a real good idea to deploy these and to try to see what it feels like to go out the window through one, because it is not easy and it is not intuitive and it's quite awkward. So you really want to do some practicing with these things, but I will warn you, be careful. Maybe put some blankets or something along those lines down the side of the house or something, because they can tear up the siding, especially vinyl siding. You can get cracks and stuff like that, especially if you get a big person, a full-size man or something on these. Then you got to be careful. So just think about that. Think about how you're going to protect the house and all that kind of stuff. When you do it, you don't want to cause damage unnecessarily, but it's a really good idea, especially for kids, to go through this at least once before having to try to figure it out in a fire. Because like I said, you only got a couple of minutes, so you need to practice with these things. You also need to check it for fit before use. Most of these are made for basic 2x4 construction homes, and so the thickness of the windowsill and all that kind of stuff is kind of gauged off of that. If you have a home that's constructed with 2x6s or something like that, then a regular one may not fit. So make sure you check that before you go, because they are a little bit squirrely. So, take a look at them. Okay, some additional fire safety gear I think is a great idea to have here. First one is a fire blanket or a welding blanket. Now this, you can get the smaller fire blankets down here in the bottom left corner over there. They are pretty small on dimension wise, and so you might want to get a welding blanket. It's essentially the same thing. They're basically made of woven fiberglass, and they are not going to melt very easily. You know, it's very high temperature and that kind of thing, and they're going to work out pretty good. They don't take up a whole lot of space, but you essentially can throw those over you. You know, if you're trying to maneuver out through an area where there's a lot of flames and stuff, maybe the hallway is engulfed or something, and you can kind of do that. The next thing that I would recommend is these. Any of the different kinds of these are fine. I actually tested this particular one, the HK mask. It's called the Pocket Smoke Mask. I have a video on it. I'll try to upload it to Patreon for you guys as well, so that you can see it. I built a teepee, and I started a real smoky fire inside the teepee, and I put this thing on, and then I would try to breathe with it on and see, and I did okay. I didn't have any problem breathing. And then I would take it off, and I would go in and try to breathe without it, and it was horrible. I couldn't do it. So it was pretty effective for short-term stuff. And it was actually pretty fire resistant and stuff as well. If you've got flames right up around the neck piece, really close to your neck, then it could start to get some burnage there. But overall, I was pretty satisfied with them. I thought they were pretty good, and I think they're like $35 on Amazon. And there's other kinds of smoke masks as well. There's different ones that are a little bit more formal, and you know, an actual like a gas mask kind of thing with a cartridge. Get whatever you want, but having one is a great idea because a lot of deaths are from smoke inhalation, and so these can actually be quite useful. Now with gloves and boots, it really depends on, you know, how high speed you want to go on this. This might be a little over the top, but you know, if you had a set of quick pull-on boots, like a fireman's kind of boot style boot, at the, you know, in your closet or at the foot of your bed or something, you can throw those on real quick, and you know, they're going to be fairly fire resistant and all that kind of stuff as well. And then the gloves, you know, if you're having to move and grab stuff and all that kind of thing with hot doorknobs and whatever, you know, then just having a set of gloves could be useful as well. So just things to think about. And then I talked about the axe before as well. Having an axe, I believe, is a really good idea. Okay, so here's some resources. These are some where I got some of the information for this lesson. You guys could check those links out if you want to. And obviously, one thing I didn't talk about here is getting a professional, fire extinguisher system put into your home. That's a possibility. That's, you know, they're pretty high dollar, but obviously that's going to be pretty effective against fighting fires as well. But I thought it was kind of beyond the scope of this lesson, so we didn't really talk about it. But we did talk about the 7 most common causes of house fires. We talked about nightly fire and security checks, kind of developing that sheepdog attitude. Detectors, both smoke and carbon monoxide. The fire escape plan, although I misspelled that. Your assigned duties. And then doing drills. Different kinds of fire extinguisher type and placement, fire extinguisher use, escape ladders, and some additional gear. So I would love to hear from you guys in the comments. Is your fire stuff squared away? Do you have all the things that you need to have in your rooms? Do you have some fire escape hoods and different things like that for your kids? Do you have fire blankets? Do you have the fire extinguishers placed in the right places in your home? Again, this is a high probability event. 354,000 plus fires per year. People are affected by these things all the time. You know, a lot of us spend a lot of time prepping for low probability things like EMPs and asteroid impacts and stuff that may never happen. House fires do happen. They do. And so we really should take this kind of stuff seriously. So I'm challenging you guys to go out and get your stuff squared away. And if Antifa shows up in your neighborhood throwing Molotov cocktails, you will be better equipped to handle it. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I definitely appreciate it. And I will see you on another video here shortly.